Welcome to another episode of Pansa Pansa Podcast. I'm your host again, Ms. Kemiseriki. On this episode, my guest and I dive into a profound and often challenging topics of traumatic childhood experience that is rarely discussed within African immigrant communities. The content discussed may be emotionally intense for some listeners. I encourage you to prioritize your well-being and discretion as the guests shared stories that shed light on resilience, healing, and strength of human spirit. The aim is to create a supportive space for understanding and empathy. The topic we are discussed may invoke many emotions, and it's perfectly okay to take a break or skip this episode if you feel it might be overwhelming for you. If you find yourself needing support or someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out to friends, family, or professionals. Your mental health matters, and take care of yourself is always a priority. Taking care of yourself is always a priority. Now, let's continue with this episode. And I will encourage you to subscribe to Pansa Pansa Podcast, shared among family, members, and friends. Because as we continue to discuss these challenging topics within our community, we're shredding away stigma that is associated with uncomfortable dialogue. Thank you.
Welcome to the Pansa Pansa Forum. In the Yoruba language, the word pansa is usually injected into poetry to express an uncomfortable, uncensored, and inconvenient truth. The Pansa Pansa Forum is candid conversations about the life of African immigrants in America as it relates to their adaptation to their new home. While some may find it easy to integrate and can balance between retaining the original African culture while accepting the culture of their new home, many continue to struggle to find a balance between both worlds.
Hello and welcome to Pansa Pansa Live. This is a podcast where we discuss the lives of African immigrants and their assimilation into Western society as they raise younger generations in a country that is quite different from their own. We also explore the experiences of children of immigrants as they balance the African and Western cultures. We present to you this informative, interesting, and expansive dialogue about the intricate experiences of African immigrants in America.
Okay, welcome to Pansa Pansa. I'm your host, Ms. Kemiseriki, and today I'm having a conversation with Gugulethu Makhari, an entrepreneur and African immigrant from South Africa. As she prefers to be called, Gugu, she's a business person in many avenues. I can't even continue to count. Also, she's of whom I will call a global activist, woman rights and youth advocacy. Gugu and I recently met when I attended African Animation Festival, hosted by one of my previous guests on this podcast, Professor Boukary Sawadogo. I was so impressed by her community and global engagement in human rights activism, and our response was warm. So I'm so glad that you accepted my invitation to be a guest, the first South African on Pansa Pansa Podcast. So welcome to Pansa Pansa Conversation, Gugu. And as I said, thank you so much for coming on this platform to talk about your experience as an immigrant from South Africa, as a parent, and the selfless work that you also do within the community, and what actually pushed you to do those community work globally. So as I always ask my guests, can you fully introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your background to our audience as to where you were born, where you spent most of your childhood and adult life.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show, Miss Kemi. I'm really, really honored. It is my pleasure to be here and share my story today. Yes, as you have introduced me, my name is Gugu Makhari. Actually, Makhari comes from my previous marriage, my last name there. So I was born as Nguta, raised by Nkosis. I was born in Soweto actually during the Apartheid era, like in 1983. My two parents that were married, but unfortunately during the time my mom was pregnant with me, there was a lot of fights between them, my parents, you know. I'm not sure exactly what caused that, but there were a lot of allegations about me not being my dad's child and my dad's family supporting that. As a result, I don't have a relationship with them because I was rejected from birth, basically, yeah. So I know my mom's side of the family, which is the Nkosis, the Swatis. I'm sure you've heard of Swatis, like the Nguni tribe. So I was raised by my grandmother, who's Zulu, but married into a Swati family. So like my culture was still at least embedded in me, like the Zulu culture, which is my dad's culture. So I didn't miss out a lot when it comes to that, you know, thank God. When my mom and my dad divorced, I was probably like 3 months old. And my mom moved back to where she came from, like her family home, which was in Springs, which is the east end of Johannesburg. So I was a city girl, born and raised in the city. Yeah, so during the time that my mom, like I left my dad, I had to go restart a life in Springs, Guatemala, which is where I grew up pretty much. She met my stepdad, who then raised me as his own. So we had a good relationship at home with my stepdad. We got along very well. In fact, I was considered his favorite. Time went by. Okay, before that, like I'm just going to explain the situation at home. Like I grew up in a very hostile situation. By hostile, I mean my mom, I think at that age that she was probably around my age or a little younger than me. She already had me and my brother, and she further had 4 other kids. Yeah.
So making 6 of you.
Yeah, making 6 of us. But then my dad had a child from his previous marriage before he was married to my mom. So I basically have 6 siblings. Yeah, even though the firstborn from my dad's side, we don't really have a relationship that much. I've met him a couple of times. I can literally count the number of times I've seen him, probably 3 times in my whole life.
So when did you move to the United States?
I moved to the US 2018. That is when I was 35 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
On this platform, we always talk about uncomfortable dialogue about African immigrant experience. What would you say are some of the challenges or struggle of being African immigrant woman in America?
I just feel like we share the same struggles that any other immigrant would share, according to my experience. There's no difference. An immigrant is an immigrant wherever they are. Well, there is white privileges. We've seen white people, they are not considered immigrants most of the times. Like you look at the dynamics in South Africa when it comes to xenophobia. No one is fighting a white person for being an immigrant. No one ever, they never fight them. Like somehow, you know, it's always us Black people fighting amongst each other. I've seen the discrimination here. In some cases, I've experienced that. Not just the discrimination, but I've heard attacks as well. I have had an attack so recently, actually, funny enough, and I had just joined Miss Immigrant. Like within a month of joining Miss Immigrant, I was on a train traveling to a flag-raising event. While I was sitting on the train, I was sitting opposite a Black African-American woman. So that's even worse because that's exactly what the reference that I was making, that Black people fight, like we are always constantly in positions where we're fighting amongst each other. And for no apparent reason, like that, like it's like self-hate type of a situation, you know.
Yes.
And this is a person who obviously doesn't know their history for them to call me an immigrant. You know why she's called me an immigrant? I'm sitting opposite to her on a train, minding my business, and I saw her daughter like whispering something to her. Like I think she had like about 4 kids with her. Mind you, she had one on a stroller. She had one that she was carrying. And then she had the girl and she had a boy. Yeah, like it was about 4 or 5 kids, something like that. So as I was looking, I can see her mouth, like, you know, her mouth moving, but she's looking at me directly. And it's just going on. And I'm looking on the side, thinking, is she talking to me? So I actually really go, like, are you talking to me? And then she goes, yeah. And she starts calling me names, you know? Yeah, like F words and B words, and started telling me, listen, go back to where you come from. This is not your country. I was born, bred here. And I'm thinking, girl, first, you don't know how you came here. You don't know your history. Clearly, for you to actually think this is your country and this is not my country.
Mm-hmm.
America is no one's land, but the indigenous people that are not even considered that important or deemed that important for that matter to this day and age, But the way she went on in front of her kids was just crazy. Like, for me, that showed me that that woman had really serious mental problems, because it escalated, like, from there. Like, she was just insulting me in the train, telling me, oh, you know what, I'm educated, I finished high school. And I'm thinking, I've been to 6 colleges. Like, you're telling me about high school. Like, I was just thinking in my head, I didn't know what to do. I was in a very hopeless situation. I remember the police were called, because when we got to Grand Central, the police then came, and I was getting off at that station.
Yeah.
So as I got off, the police were already outside. And instead of them actually hearing my story, I was already being attacked by them too.
Wow.
Yeah, because I don't know because she had kids with her and I'm by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really, really upset. And I remember actually telling the police that they are useless themselves, and actually grabbing my phone, because I had the whole thing recorded on the video. This woman was like, if you see the video that I had recorded, it was so sad, because she was really even willing to put one of her kids down so that she can beat me up and take care of business, so she said.
Would you even say, as somebody from South Africa who have experienced apartheid in South Africa, that when you come to America, that you are not just going to experience discrimination based on institutionalized racism that is going on in this country between Black and white, but you're also going to face challenges from a Black person of color, whose ancestors also came from Africa? It's
actually, I've experienced more discrimination from Black people than I've experienced from white people. I only have one case of a white person, when I had just moved here. I was at a clinic and I was sitting next to this white guy, and I was listening. I had my earphones, I'm listening to a song, and I'm just going, to the song. And the guy, I felt something push me for a couple of times, but I didn't realize this guy was doing it deliberately. I thought it was just someone moving who's just next to me, but there was a time when I had this loud bang, like the person hit me, so he took his backpack and he just hit me on my head. And when I looked, he was like, stop playing the music. And then I remember, African women are very feisty. Mm-hmm. I remember actually getting up and just getting physical with him, and they had to call security, and it was so crazy at the hospital, And I actually wanted to know what they're going to do with the situation, because I'm there minding my business. And if I was bothering him that much, why couldn't he just move instead of doing what he did? And so that really messed me up, because I was really upset. And I had just moved here. I could have gotten myself in trouble, in fact, if the security didn't come, because I was really willing to fight with him. Really, really ready to fight with all that I have, So, yeah, so that was my first experience. And life went on. I kept on hearing people talking about the racism in this country that I didn't really, I had that reference, but I didn't really still really realize how much racism there is in this country. Mm-hmm. But the experiences that I've heard, more than that one particular experience, came from a lot of Black people, a lot of especially Black women.
Discriminate against African immigrants?
Yes, especially African American women. Yeah. Not all of them. Of course, I've met a lot of beautiful African American women that I'm even friends with, but I've seen a lot of them that don't really, that would say things that they don't like us. They would say, they undermine. I've seen that. I've seen that. It has happened so many times. I'm not the type to keep quiet if someone is going to say that, or I'm going to put you in your place very quickly. So I've seen myself put a lot of African American women in their places in so many occasions, especially because when I moved here, I used to be working around restaurants, and so yeah.
Because many of the complaints that I've heard is that African Americans actually complains against Africans, that they have some certain perception against them and they look down on them. But
it's the truth. Mm-hmm.
But then we're not talking about, both sides of the coin of why that perception actually is in place. And what do African Americans, how do they even look at African immigrants in this country? All those conversation is not openly dialogue. Because as I've said in this podcast many times, everybody have biases no matter what. Mm. We all possess some biases no matter what, whether you're Black or white, even against each other. But then when your biases start affecting people to the way of whereby you have to attack the person and tell them to go back to where they come from, they don't belong here, or not offering them opportunity in a job place, or discriminating, pure discrimination and hate against set of certain people because of where they come from or who they are, is something to openly discuss. And I don't think we have discussed that enough within African Americans and as well as African immigrant community. And Africans Americans are not the only people of color in this country. We have people from Latin America. We have people from different parts of the world who are also immigrants in this country, from the Caribbean also, who are also in this country. So there has to be open dialogue about this kind of tension that goes on among people of color themselves, apart from focusing only on the racial injustice. Because as somebody from South Africa, I understand that it's easier for you to understand the racial struggle in America and the continuous institutionalized racism. You say you are well connected with some African Americans who have been grateful and show you acceptance and love and everything, which I experience the same thing. I've come across many African Americans, I won't say all of them, okay, who are very grateful and they pull you in as one of their own. Then you face a lot of also aggression from so many other people as well. We have to talk about this. So when they're talking about issue of race in this country, are you able to connect with that conversation about racism in this country based on white discrimination, or in general, the discrimination that comes not only from being black towards white people who are discriminated against you because of your color of your skin, but in general, discrimination based on where you come from, your ethnicity?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of dynamics to the situation. Like, you have people that have their own insecurity, obviously, and I don't see anyone in their right mind who is not insecure fighting another person. Obviously, it stems from insecurity. And also self-hate, because there are people that know they look like you and they wish they were like you. They had the energy that you have. Like, Africans, we know we have that energy. It's innate, like we have that pure, like, our joy, like that energy, like it's just in us. We can't even help ourselves. So I can imagine how irritating or annoying that can be to someone who's very insecure, someone who doesn't really necessarily know where they belong. And this is not to undermine or to put down anyone down. It's just real facts that cause these kind of problems. Like, I mean, we have so many African American women or people that don't know where they came from. They don't know their history. They don't know that. So I can't imagine being in that position. I'd probably feel the same way, having someone who comes from Africa, where I should be coming from. They know who they are. They're confident in who they are. And their light is just shines bright. And, like, I can imagine how I would probably, I don't know, like, how it would have been if the tables were the other way around, So, like, for me, like, for instance, making reference back to my situation that happened, I had so many options. I could have taken that clip that I still have on my phone. I could have posted it to go viral. I could have done that. I could have spread around friends, family. I could have done that. On my Facebook, I could have done that. But I chose not to. You know why? Because I started putting myself in that woman's shoes. And actually considering the fact that this person could be mentally disturbed. They could be suffering mentally. This is a mother with 4 kids who looks younger, way younger than me. Like, I know definitely she's younger than me. And here I am looking cute, sitting on the train, looking like I don't have problems, like, and she's there looking at me and thinking, look at her, like, I'm all dressed up, for Christ's sake. I'm going to a meeting, like, I just look like I don't have problems, so picture that. And she's sitting there in the train and she feels this is a country I should not be happy because she's miserable. You understand? So that happens in a lot of cases where people are very insecure, people are miserable. So they say miserable, like misery likes company. So it's that kind of a situation. And I had to put myself in her shoes to say, oh, she's acting this way because of her insecurity, probably the self-hate. So that person had their own agenda, their own problem, their own insecurity. That has nothing to do with everyone else. So I cannot not go around and take that situation that happened and then make it everyone's problems. Yes, we do find a lot of people that act a certain way. And my understanding is that this is just an individual who really has a crisis that it could be an identity crisis that's leading them to act this way or feeling this insecure. And then they want to take their misery out on me. Because why not take your misery in another white person that you see on the train? Like, do they do that to white people? When it comes to these kind of situations, like I've never really seen a black person telling a white person, go back to your country. I've never really experienced that. So it just shows me that it's like you're watching yourself in the mirror. So I mirror who they are in a way, or who they wish they were. So because they're not there, they're going to hate me for it. So now I have to pay the price for their insecurity. So that's how I'm looking at it. Yeah, so those were the challenges that I had to deal with.
You had to deal with. And I've heard many immigrants also deal with that. And we, people of African descent, no matter where we are, we have to understand that we are all connected. And it reminds me of what actually was going on even in South Africa regarding South Africa with other Black immigrants in South Africa that didn't go back to the country. Many Nigerians, even Nigerians too experienced it when they were telling Ghanaians, go back to your country. You know, Ghanaians not also did it to Nigerians, go back to your country. But put that on the side. This is a country of immigrants. Like immigrants come from different places, you know, just like any white immigrant that you talk about, just like any Asians who come from different part of Asian countries, that they come to America to seek for opportunity that is in this country. So it's something that I wish we could openly discuss, you know, within our African immigrant and African in the diaspora who are based in America, because I don't want to just focus only on African Americans, because you have even some people who are from the Caribbeans who also discriminate against Africans. Because
it has happened before, actually. Funny enough, you just reminded me of a situation that happened like that, especially with a lot of people from Haiti. I've had situations like that where there was serious discrimination. There was exchange of words for no reason. I've been in a situation with a lot of Haitian people, like not a lot of them, but a few women, particularly women.
Even from the Caribbean, because you cannot tell the name. Okay, you can't tell the difference between their names, they bear English name, compared to someone like you or me who have African names, that it could be identified that this is a foreign name. It's something that we need to have a conversation on, because there's so much we could gain from each other instead of antagonizing one another. Okay.
That's right.
And I'm so happy that you're able to show this woman compassion, and you are so considerate of how will it feel if you put that video on the social media. What will it create? It will create extensive aggression of those who will see it, and it creates more hate. And I thank you for taking on higher ground and said, you're not going to post this on social media because it won't solve any problem. You know, so it makes people to be more angry, to create more hate. A lot of time, many of our problem, of course, you know, we talk about issue of race, but we have to talk about our individual problem within our own group, our own community itself. Our own African descent.
Yes,
you know, because everything is not about why this for me. Why people did that? Why people did this? If it wasn't because of white people, I won't be here. If you know, so there's certain things we all know. The system of oppression is all over the world.
Yeah, it's very true. Like going back to the xenophobic situation that happens in South Africa. It's literally like a very small, ignorant group that's doing all these things. Like I would use the word ignorant and probably stupid. Like, you know, that are causing all these tensions, you know, in our country, like telling people to go back to their countries, not even understanding our history. During the apartheid, a lot of people had to be exiled. Where did they go to? They ran to Zimbabwe, they ran to Zambia, they ran to different African countries, where they were housed, where people opened their doors. You understand? So it just shows you that people don't know their history, and that is so scary and very, very sad. That is why I'm also fighting the whole situation where they want to wipe out Black history. Like, how do you wipe out that history? How do you do that? Because that's robbing. Like, that's human robbery. Like, I don't know what word to describe that. Like, that should not even be legal.
Yeah.
You understand? Because taking that away from us, that is taking some parts of who we are as Black people. We are who we are today as a result of our history. And our generations and generations to come, they need to understand what had happened to us for us to be where we are. Like, for instance, when I'm talking about the xenophobia in South Africa, I'm talking about it stems from people that are still not healed from apartheid. They're still not healed.
Yeah.
We never got time to heal from apartheid. We never. That's the truth. That is the truth, because what happened was when Nelson Mandela was released from prison and then later he got inaugurated, people were still excited about his freedom. So there was never a time where we sat down and before we know it, that we had this party ANC, like everyone was excited that people are getting appointed. Black people are now like taking over, like they're taking control, they're getting so much power. But then what happened? They abused the power. Look at ANC now, like that is a party that so many people died for, so many people fought for. Look how divided people are. Even the people that were in the same party are divided today. They hate each other. They all went separate ways, starting their own different parties. You see what I mean? So it means we need healing.
Yeah.
We need a lot of healing. A lot of healing has to take place because people are still operating from the oppression.
Yes.
They are still operating from that mentality.
And you're so right about what you said regarding healing, because when you talk about traumatic experience of the past, how that traumatic experience is passed from generation to generation. And when you also don't know your history of why you are acting certain way, why you are doing what you're doing, it later on become normalized as if that's the normal way of doing things.
Yeah, exactly. We normalize things that are not normal. That's very true.
Yeah, that is abnormal because nobody ever challenged it and said, no, let's go back to the history. How was the history like? Why are we acting like this in the first place?
Exactly.
What makes us to be who we are today? And we cannot only blame white people for not teaching us our history. We have many African intellectuals who are PhD holders, professors, history professors, who could document a lot of all these things and change the curriculum in different African countries to talk about the apartheid, colonization, how that colonization and apartheid continue to have an impact in people till today.
Right. And this should be bringing us closer instead of dividing us.
Yes.
You understand? So it just shows you how deeply rooted this apartheid situation affected us as Black people. Because, yes, we got our freedom, but then I guess we were all affected, but only a few were able to get ahead with their lives financially. They were able to improve their lives. And then there's a lot that were left behind. And people are still asking themselves, where is this freedom that we're talking about? I mean, how is it that people are still financially lacking and still lacking resources to this day? So those are things that also contribute to why the people's behavior. So understanding our history, understanding where we come from, that can be healing. Like, I mean, if you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, they will ask you about where you're from. They will ask you how many siblings you've had. How was it? Like, just like when you started this interview, you asked me, or how was it growing up for you at home? Like, how many siblings did we have? Because those things are very important. It's very important for a psychologist to understand who I am as a person and where I come from, what things affected me, what went wrong in my life at some point, So my behavior today is as a result of my history. Exactly. You see what I mean? You find a lot of people that are serial killers because maybe they are dead. treated them a certain way when they were young, like maybe they got molested, everyone was taking advantage of them in the family, bullied at school. They were beaten up every single day of their lives. I mean, I can relate to that. My mom used to beat me up every single day, not just me, but all of us, well, like at home. Like we used to get beaten up by electric wires, the whip, beer crates. I can mention belts. I can mention my mom could take even a stone and just throw it on you. Yeah, that's how bad it was. Like I'm so it's just by God's grace that I don't even have a scar like in my body today. I'm telling you. I have a brother who like put on a marble eye. I remember that day, I can't remember what he had done exactly. My mom took a crate, which was nothing new. She's done that to me. She's done it to so many. Thank God it didn't affect me that way. But she hit him so bad that it affected his eye so bad. His eye bled and
So
he had to take out his eye.
It's part of what I want to discuss with you, the unfortunate childhood experience that you went through or what you also experienced other people go through. Was that what motivates your interest in human rights, women's rights, and as well as youth advocacy?
Yeah, like it definitely did. I think we always lean towards a situation or a path that somehow we can resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be so active, like to be an advocate, to be an activist, obviously it was due to the fact that I grew up a certain way. I've experienced so many injustices in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, like I've experienced gender-based violence. I've experienced gender equality. I've experienced a lot of abuse from home. Like, so when you talk about domestic violence, it's something that before I've experienced it from men outside, it's something I had experienced from home already. So let me just say this. My mom was a very hardworking woman. You know, when she was married to my stepdad, it was very evident that my stepdad was sleeping around. You know, we even have, it's funny because opposite my home, there's a child that is like around the same age as my sister. Yeah. And she looks exactly like my sister. So you can imagine my mom being in a situation where we've always known this. Like it was never talked about. We never sat down. There were no paternity tests were done, but we know that child is my stepdad's child. It looks exactly like my sister. You understand? So my stepdad obviously was having an affair with a girl. Like, so she's a little older than me, but way younger than my mother. In fact, her mom and my mom at some point were friends. But then anyway, the point is that eventually she had a child and that child looks like my sister. And I was still young, but in my teenage years when I was hearing the word going around that, yeah, there's a possibility that that child is our sibling.
But can you also imagine what your mom experienced as a child growing up? That's part of where we're talking about normalizing abnormal behavior. My previous podcast that I just released, I spoke to a psychologist from Malawi about intergenerational trauma, how trauma is passed down from one generation to generation.
It's kind of weird in my family though, because my grandmother, which is my mom's mom, my maternal grandmother, and my grandfather, which is who I know. I don't know my dad's side of the family. I've met some of the members. I've met like family members, but I don't really have a relationship with them. But my mom didn't grow up in that environment. They were never beat up, but my mom beat us up every single day. They were never beat up. I've asked this while my grandmother was still alive, in front of her. My grandmother would not even understand my mom's behavior. Wow. I don't know where that depression came from. I'm telling you, like they were never beat up. They were never treated that way. Yeah. You know, they had very decent parents. My grandparents were very decent. And in fact, my grandfather died at a very young age and left my grandmother with 9 kids to raise. And that she did that all on her own when she had no education and she had to leave everything and to make sure she goes to work. Then, you know, they worked for white people in their homes, cleaning their homes. And so she did that. She had to leave everything and go make sure that she fends for her kids. And she did the best she could to make sure that they get education. None of my mom's siblings didn't go to school. They all went to school. They all had a fair chance and they all had decent education. Like there's no one from my mom's side of the family that didn't get a fair chance. They all got a fair chance and they didn't go through the abuse that my mom put us through. They didn't. So I don't know where that came from.
Yeah. You also know in Africa, sometimes, apart from maybe talking about generational trauma, it may be other things that she may be experiencing emotionally that maybe have contributed for such.
Yes, obviously. So I don't know, it could have been the loss of their dad while they were still young. Then obviously being a single mom, having 9 kids, there's obviously going to be struggles.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be siblings fighting. There's always going to be sibling rivalry. There's always going to be that, which is normal. But I don't know how it escalated to them being abusive, because it was not only my mom who was physically abusive towards us. I mean, I've had aunts that used to beat us up, used to do the worst. I remember how my aunt used to discipline me. I have this particular aunt of mine, actually it was 3 or 4 of them. Like when you did something, they will take a heel and they will knock you with a heel on your head. That was a normal thing for them. I'm telling you. That was very normal. It was normal for my aunts to I remember I have this aunt of mine who lives here now. It's so funny because we don't even have a close relationship. And this is a person who left home 28 years ago and who just went back home now in December for the first time in 28 years. And we still don't have that relationship. I don't know, there's this distance. And even if I got in trouble today, she's the last person I would think about reaching out to.
It's really sad. And sometimes, even though she may not have grew up in a home with a parents that physically abusive, but the idea that your grandmother was overwhelmed with all the children, raising all the children by herself, trying to make ends meet, a lot of all those things may have contributed to how she treated you guys. And also, looking at the collective community that you are in, if many people are doing it, she may also think it's normal to be done.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. So,
yes, that's true.
Gugu, as you and I have spoken before about the first marriage you experienced in South Africa, and I went ahead and do research about forced marriage just to let the listener know that it's very common all over the world. I found out that forced marriage and early marriage are mostly common in many African countries, South Asia, as well as former Soviet Republic. I didn't even know. However, there's still cases of forced marriage or early marriage in even affluent North American and European countries as well. So a land forced marriage could be connected with other forms of slavery. And there's a reason why parents may think that they do such a thing to force their children into early marriage. Can you briefly talk a little bit about your experience with forced marriage?
Yeah. First, in my family, I think my grandmother was probably, I'm not sure if she was 16 years when she got married to my grandfather. Because she was in her 20s when my grandfather died, I think, and she had 9 kids. She was very, very young. So it was a normal thing that people would get married very young in our family. I mean, even my mom, when I was growing up, she constantly would mention that if you're with a guy for 3 months and he's not saying anything about getting married, then you need to get out of that situation. He's not going to marry you, So I grew up with that mentality that if I'm with a guy, he has to say something within 3 months. And I don't know if luckily or unfortunately, in my case, I really had guys that were willing to marry me within 3 months. It's not like I had to ask. They really were there and willing most of the times, And that affected the way I see relationships, or it affected my choice when it came to men, because I assumed, I normalized that if a man can afford to do certain things for me, then they are deemed worthy to marry me. You understand? And which is something that I've seen within African communities being normalized. First it starts with you in your teens and you're starting to maybe see boys, or boys are taking you out. A boy is like, oh, let me take you out. And then you're like, Mom, can I please go out? They know a boy is coming to pick you up and taking you out. So, probably they just see the boy comes around all the time. And then their typical response, I don't know in other countries in Africa, but in South Africa, that's a very typical response where your family is going to say, yeah, you can go. And when you come back, make sure you bring a box of pizza. So a lot of girls, when they go out, It's very normal in Africa. A lot of girls, when they go out, they know that you cannot come back home empty-handed. Somehow you go out with that mentality that especially when you have siblings, that the guy has to somehow buy some takeaways for you, like you know. So that was a normal way of dealing with things. So like people call women gold diggers, they call women a lot of names. But like I always tell people that don't call women in South Africa gold diggers as much as they could sound like that or they could be like that. They call themselves slave queens now. But it stemmed from their upbringing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, people are not ready for these kind of conversations, but it's normalized. That is the truth. If I can really sit down, people that are willing to talk about these things openly and be honest, they will tell you what I'm saying. They will confirm what I'm saying to you.
So how was your arranged marriage, the arranged marriage that they had for you? What was your initial reaction or thought when you first learned about the first marriage? And what reason did your parents, I believe your mom and your stepfather, gave you surrounding their decisions?
I had nowhere to argue with them about any decisions that they made, especially at that point in time, at that age, because I was in high school when that happened. My mom, like I said, at some point, she was really a hard worker. At some point, as a result of my stepdad cheating and sleeping around with different women, my mom barely had friends because almost every friend that she had, my stepdad would be doing stuff with them. You understand? So eventually they divorced. And I remember, I'm going to go back to what you asked me, but something just like came to my mind now. I remember one time, I don't know what my stepdad had actually, I think he had slept with one of my mom's close friends. I remember, yeah. And my mom like literally took all his clothes and threw them outside the yard for the community, for everyone to see. And I was coming back from school and I'm seeing this and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I'm like so upset. So I'm taking like his clothes. And mind you, at that time, this is my favorite dad, remember? I'm packing his clothes. I'm putting it back in the yard. I'm asking my mom, why is she doing this now? So there's this feud, like we are fighting between us, my mom and I. I'm taking all his clothes back in, because it's so embarrassing. She threw out all the clothes and stuff like that. I can't remember like how they eventually sorted that out. Anyway, she had a corner store. So we lived in a four-roomed house. The four-roomed house, a typical four-roomed house in a township. My mom had a bedroom and all of us, my siblings, we had our own bedroom, which was very small. And we had the living room, which is also very small, and the kitchen. And the kitchen is like not even half of the bedroom. Like it's probably half of the bedroom, like size or something like that. It was very small. And my mom decided, because she needed to start a business, she's going to turn our bedroom into a corner store, which meant now we have to sleep on the floor in the living room. And she started selling beers. So now we had men, like I'm telling you, my home was filled with men every single day that came for beer, to buy beer. So my mom was a shipping queen. We had a corner store. And then we're selling food on top of that. So you can imagine I barely had time to be outside playing with friends because I always constantly had something that I had to do at home, helping out at home. And it was not even a choice. Like, it was an obligation. Also, when it came to her telling me, like, it was not even an option for me to go be with this cousin of my stepdad. So one day I came back from school and my mom just told me, I need to talk to you. And she sat me down and she said, oh, you've grown now. So you are at that age where you can be a wife, you are a woman. So you can just get married, And then she said, listen, your stepdad and I decided that the best thing for us to be able to continue with the business at home is for you to go marry your uncle. Like, well, it was not really blood related to me, but he was still my uncle, like my stepdad's cousin. My stepdad knew me from when I was 3 months old. He literally practically raised me as his own. And then now, I think the cousin was I'm not sure if he was a little older than him, but I know he was like probably twice my age or more. Yeah, more than twice my age.
How old were you then?
I was 18 at the time. Yeah, and mind you, I had dreams to go to Cape Town University. I had dreams like to study, and I just wanted to do a lot of things. And my mom's dream is for me to go marry this guy so that her business can improve. So she sits me down, she tells me, like, yeah, we already spoke to your uncle. He says the only way he's going to help us and help you, your stepdad, find a job is if we let you get married to him. And let me tell you something, I had no choice. I remember actually like really thinking, like crying, like thinking, why? Why does my mom think that's okay? And it was very confusing after that because I didn't know how to even relate to my mom after that. And then the guy, actually, I remember him coming and speaking to me and asking me, when am I going to be ready? And I said to him, but I'm doing my matric. And if I can just finish up my matric, then maybe after that, then I can do it then. But right now, I can't. Like, I need to finish up my matric. I remember it was going to be my birthday a week later. And the guy actually came and brought me this big cake. And we had a birthday party. And he's the first person to buy me a cell phone during that time. Like, he bought me like a nice Nokia phone then. But then I didn't know his intentions. I just thought he was just this cousin of my dad and stepdad that came. And he was just being nice because I had my birthday and he was trying to do the most to make sure that I'm fine. But actually, he had his own intentions. And my mom was supporting those intentions along with my stepdad because of their selfish reasons.
So they use you as an exchange for business.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. So fast forward, I was moved eventually to his place. He had been married, I think, twice before or 3 times before.
And he has children.
He had kids, yeah. I just didn't know them very well. I think they stayed with their mom or I just really can't remember, to be honest, because when I was moved there to stay with him, he was just staying by himself. And he owned this construction business in Soweto. So my dad also had to move to his house because he needed my dad to be there. So the only way I could cope with the situation was to get drunk every single day. I remember I had to drink every single day. I had to drink. I'm telling you, to numb myself, I was drinking. That's where I really learned to drink, like, to be honest. I was never really fond of alcohol. I drank just ciders, like lightly, but that's where I started really drinking heavy.
To block the pain.
Yes, just to numb the pain and to sort of get myself in the situation, like if it was touching me, like, stuff like that, like so that I don't really have to feel that what was happening was wrong or to avoid the pain. Like I was just really drinking myself to smithereens. So I drank myself drunk every day and to a point where this guy was really getting tired of me. He was so tired of me, like, because I was always coming back drunk, like, I barely listened to him. I wasn't there. Let me just put it that way. I was there, but I was not there. I was really confused. I'm like 18. I just finished up school. I want to go study like at a university. I'm just lost. I went to my dad and I asked my dad, like my biological dad, like, Dad, can you please take me to a university? They already accepted me. And this is how much the residence is going to cost. This is how much they need for registration. Oh, my dad's response was funny because the first response was, oh, I didn't even know you were doing matric. Secondly, oh, we are taking my stepbrother now from my dad's side because my dad was now with my stepmom. He's helping out take my stepbrother to a university, whereas we're the same age as my stepbrother. Also, I needed to go to a university, but they prioritized him. And it didn't matter. My dad didn't even say. Yeah, it was also that because I remember my dad actually saying, I quote his words saying, I don't take a girl child to a university. Those were exact words. So when you talk about gender equality, for me, it didn't just start anywhere, but it started from home. Yeah. It started with my mom thinking my brother deserves more, like has more rights than me. It started with my mom asking my brother to discipline me. It started with my brother thinking it's okay for him to just slap me whenever he felt like it. And my mom making it that okay, normalizing that. You understand? Yes. And my dad telling me, you can't take a girl child to school and prioritizing my step brother.
Yes. And I know many women will relate to your story.
So sad.
It is sad.
And the very same stepbrother never even attended class. He wasted 3 years with nothing to show, with no class. He has never even attended class. And let me tell you something. Going back now to what was happening with the guy. The guy was sleeping with me. He's an older man. I'm staying at his house. My parents have practically sold me to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember one day actually going out and then coming back late, like I was drunk, and I threw myself in bed. And I think I saw the guy when I was coming in, because I remember how upset he was, like that I came drunk. He was like, "Oh my God, you're drunk again. Oh, what's wrong with the child?" And I just remember like passing him and thinking, whatever. And then I went inside the house while he was leaving. And I threw myself in the bed. While I was laying in bed, I remember hearing my stepdad coming in and coming in the room. But like, like you passed out, but you are conscious of what is happening around you. But yes, but then you are like at the same time, you are blacked out, but you can see everything. You can hear everything that's happening around you. So it was that kind of a situation where I'm laying in bed and my stepdad walks in. And he starts calling me, and then he realizes she's drunk, and he keeps on saying, "Gugu, Gugu," like, but he can tell. And then I remember him actually like taking off his pants and climbing on top of me. Yeah.
Your stepdad?
Yeah, my stepdad, the very stepdad that apparently I was his favorite child, the one that raised me since I was 3 months old, that the very same one, the one that I actually considered more loving than my own biological dad, the very same dad. Like when he was like about to penetrate me, like I don't know, it was just God's grace. I don't want to lie to you. There was this guy he worked with me that day. Like he just came and he started screaming his name from the gate. Murise, from the gate. I'm telling you, like I can't even, like I still have
the memory.
The memory, like yes, it's so vivid. Like how he was screaming, the guy. It was as if he knew exactly what was happening. And it was just right when he was about to penetrate me. And the guy just came and started screaming his name, from nowhere. And he jumped, like put on his pants quickly and left the room. And then we had to pretend like nothing has happened. But I couldn't take it. I had to tell my mom. Told my mom, oh, like he tried to do this. Do you think my mom did anything? No. She didn't do nothing. She didn't do nothing. And that was not the first time, because I have an elder brother who comes before me. He used to do the same thing. Like he used to, like, there was a time when he used to sleep on the floor. Like when I told my mom to turn our bedroom into a corner store, and then we had to sleep on the floor. So I had those situations where my brother would put his hands on my underwear, like he would put his fingers on me, like on my private parts, like he would, and I was a teenager and I would scream, and like my mom would not do anything. Like I'm telling you, I don't know how many times my mom never did not even one single thing to discipline him.
That is so sad that you had to go through that as a child. That is so sad. So how did you get out of the marriage with a man?
After that whole incident with my stepdad, I literally packed my stuff and left. And it's so sad because when I left and I went back home, I found out I was pregnant. It was just so sad. And I told my mom about the pregnancy. And then she asked me if I wanted to keep a child or what I wanted to do. And I told her, no, there's no ways I want to keep a child. There's no ways I want to do that. And then she gave me, we had to save up. I remember we had to save up for me to get an abortion. Yeah. We saved up some money for me to be able to get an abortion. And I went to Mary Stopes. Yeah, it was so hard. Like I'm by myself. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know what's, like, morally it didn't feel right what I'm doing, but it was the best option I could have done.
Yeah.
Because it was also a discrimination. Why would I want to keep a child from a man who's supposed to be my uncle?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do a lot of things. So there was so much at stake for me. There's so much that I had to consider. Anyway, eventually I got the abortion that I needed to get, which was quite an experience as well. And I don't know, like my mom and I had this love-hate relationship, I remember being so angry with my mother. I remember being so angry.
Of course.
Yeah. I remember like people not even understanding where this anger, like people knew, like family members knew that my mom was abusive. Some had experienced my mom really being abusive towards us. There were times when my mom kicked me out of the house or something. I had to go sleep at my aunt's house, or constantly I had to like have people intervene, you know.
I know your mom passed away. Before she passed away, did you have the chance to talk to her about your feelings?
Yeah. I didn't necessarily speak to her about how I feel or how she made me feel, like particularly because it was too many things. First of all, I remember when I got a job, my first job, my mom expected me to give her my whole salary, you know. Yeah, in fact, she made it an obligation that I should have this Thanksgiving ceremony, which was like a ritual where we had to get a sheep and slaughter that, and yeah, some traditional ceremony that I had to do with my first salary. I remember it was that, which can be understandable because we are people of traditions, and a Thanksgiving ceremony. Okay, it's something that typically I feel okay, all right, there's nothing wrong with that, but the expectation like of me that I'm working and I have to like feed everyone, and you know, so I went through that, but that's what they call the black tax, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I went through that with my family for some time, for really, really for years. Yeah, I went through that where I had to be the breadwinner. I had to take care of a lot of things where I couldn't do certain things for myself because I have to take care of people. Like, you know, even though I was working, like I literally had to eat at home. Like you're working, but you can't even afford to buy yourself lunch from outside because guess what? Your salary has to go home,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to your parents, and you still have to be left with money for transportation to get to work. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So it was that kind of situation that I had to deal with. And it was just so disturbing. So my mom and I got a chance to eventually talk about some of the problems later when I now was married and I had my son. I remember like when I had my son, thinking how beautiful it is to be a mom, you know, even though I had a postmortem depression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was caused by the fact that I had to raise my siblings. Like, I mean, I had to be my mother at a very young age. I mean, already when I was like 12 years, 13 years, I had to carry my siblings on my back while I'm cooking and the other one is crying. And I had to take someone to clinic. And every single day, mind you, my life was to wake up very early, actually clean up the whole yard outside, clean up the whole house inside, do certain things, chores before go to school and come back from school and do chores again. And
They
like,
make you
yeah.
the mother. You become the mother of those children.
Yes, I was actually the mother of those children, you know. I was actually like, you know, and I had no choice to it. I had no choice. Like I had to. And I remember at some point my mom became a traditional healer. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she had to go to an initiation school. And during the time when she was being initiated, I was staying with my grandmother. And at some point, we were told that my grandma, like, we're supposed to be taken to where my mom is at.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like 3 months before, or a couple of months before she was going to graduate from the initiation school, which was like very far. It was in a different province from where we came from. It was in Mpumalanga, yeah, which was like further. And we went there to stay with my mom, like temporarily. When she was in that situation, she looked different. Like her demeanor changed. Like a lot of things had changed about her.
Mm-hmm.
Like she just looked foreign. Like, you know, she didn't look like the way she looked. First of all, my mom's complexion was way lighter than mine, and she looked darker than me right now. She just looked strange, you know. So it was, yeah, weird, like for us to come, like not to see our mom for like, I think almost a year, and then now seeing her the way she looked. And I think they had to leave me with her for some time while she was training me about the whole thing that she was doing. So being a Sangoma, like the traditional daughter,
Mm-hmm.
you have to choose someone that's going to beat up the drum for you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So she chose me.
Wow.
Yeah, but that whole ancestral, whatever, that situation that they have, like, I mean, it would happen anytime. We could be sleeping right now, and my mom would just wake up in the middle of the night and she would start like acting, and like she would act like she was very
Possession.
she possessed. Yeah, I guess when she got possessed with that whole ancestral situation thing, she would then need someone to beat up a drum for her and do certain things like for her. And I was that person. So you imagine I'm like a teenager, I'm beating up a drum for my mom. Like it didn't matter what time of the day that happened. So I lived in a home where my mom now came back as a sangoma. We had a corner store. She was hitting people on one end. On one end, we sold food. On one end, it was other stuff. And then she had kids my mom was never nurturing. Mom, like it was not even one single day where my mom came and attended one of my school visits. Never. And so she didn't with my like younger siblings. I understand. So she would typically like send us to be the ones who has to like go do something like, oh, okay, there's something at school, go do this. Or your sister needs to go to clinic, make sure, like, so you knew, like, even if I forgot to do what I needed to do, I was going to be beaten up for it. Mind you, that's a responsibility, but I was going to be beat up for not taking my sister to a clinic.
It's such a experience that is so sad. And no child should ever face this kind of traumatic experience growing up. So what resources or strategy do you find helpful in ensuring to take care of yourself with all this experience that you went through?
Therapy is what I do right now, but I still have things that I haven't really talked about, because I'm in a different country. Like I have a therapist who doesn't necessarily understand what a traditional healer is. They don't understand the intensity. They don't understand. I mean, when I was there, like I told you, like when my mom was going through the initiation before she graduated, when she graduated, there was a time when they had to slaughter a goat and she had to drink the blood. And I was made to drink the blood with her. And I had no choice participating in anything.
You were forced to participate.
I was forced. And I'm thankful that the experiences that I went through with my mom, like with all these traditional situations, led me or forced me closer to church, like, because that was my scapegoat. Church was like my scapegoat, I'm telling you. I would run to church all the time. Like I would start joining like church. Like I started going to like home cells because I was trying to avoid situations at home. So my mom couldn't tell me not to go to church. You understand? So I was gonna go to church. Church was like the place where I found solace. Let me just put it that way. Friends barely knew what was happening with me because I was this child who had to put a facade to look like I was happy. And it's not like I was faking happiness, but I think in my head, I just told myself that I'm going to be happy outside. It was not necessarily like was not faking it. I was just genuinely happy, but it's something that I had told myself that I would want to be dealing with the problems that I'm having at home. When I'm outside, I had a different outlook.
Yes.
Regardless of the circumstances that I was facing at home. So it's like I was living a double life already. Like from when I was a child, I was already living a double life because I had a totally different life at home than I had outside of home.
So how was your background, such as this horrible experience growing up with your family? And I will also kind of like push it towards, it helped you create self-discipline and resilience. Has helped you to develop the ability to overcome this adversity and adjust positively to a new life when you came to America?
Coming to America for me is something that I actually, funny enough, never imagined myself living in this country. Like if I ever imagined myself living overseas was Switzerland, never America. I think that dream was taken away from me when I was younger because I did mention I have a biological aunt who lives here, and we don't really necessarily get along. She's been my biggest critic, in fact. She's the type of an aunt that said, "Oh, I heard you gained weight," but she's never talked to me for years. Like who updates her, and it's always about the negative stuff. She'll never call me and say, "Oh, I heard you've achieved this. Congratulations." No, it's always her saying something to put me down. So I realized that, oh, she's a narcissist. So I don't have time for people like her, for real, like her trauma and whatever. Like, so she's projecting like her fears onto me. They have nothing to do with me. And like the reason I'm here has nothing to do with her. I remember when she just moved here, she had good intentions of moving me here because I was very close to her when I was way before in 1992, I think that's where she left South Africa, to come stay here. And at the time, I had won a contract for a modeling school, and she's the one that used to take me to like my modeling school. She was the one like who was very keen in making sure that I attend my classes for modeling. She was supporting a lot of my talent at the time because I used to like modeling. I used to model. Even at primary school, like I was one of those kids that were always involved in talent shows. I was a little shy then, funny enough, because I remember like they would be forcing me to smile and I would not even smile. And it's funny now, there's not even a picture of mine where...
I don't see you smile.
Yeah, there's not even a picture of mine where you won't see me smile. It's so funny. Yeah, I'm always smiling. But I just remember she was there, like helping when it came to those things. When she moved here, she had the intentions of bringing me here. During that time, I think it's the time when my mom had just came back from the initiation. Yeah, she had just came back from the initiation, I think, at that time. And I stayed with my other aunt. I think my other aunt took me in because she could see how hostile the situation was at home. And she was a teacher, and she probably thought, you know what, it's better Gugu comes and stay with me, something like that. She didn't have kids.
Yeah.
So I went to stay with her. And while I was staying with my aunt, they were not this one I'm like who lives here, but like they are siblings. So while I was staying with my aunt, the one I'm talking about now, the teacher, her husband was also a teacher. So my aunt had her own agenda, like she was doing other stuff outside, like cheating on her husband. So I would be staying with her and her husband. She would come home late. And being a kid, I used to go dig in her bags and I would find McDonald's burgers, would find receipts, stuff. Like I would just find stuff. Like I would always be digging in a bag. I don't know what I was doing, but I was just digging in a bag, There was nothing malicious about like towards my actions. It was just me like being curious and inquisitive and probably thinking like I would always find something nice. I would always find stuff like to eat in a bag. And she would not be cooking, So I'd be there with her husband cooking almost every day. Her husband will be helping me with homeworks while she's doing whatever that she was doing.
From somebody's house to come to her house to be a helper in her house.
Exactly, pretty much, yeah. So I think that's really probably the main reason. I don't even know. So while that was happening, I don't know why she assumed that I was sleeping with her husband. I was a kid. I think I was probably 11 years, 12 years, 13 years or younger.
That was in South Africa.
Yes. How she came to a conclusion that I was sleeping with her husband, who really acted like my dad, who really was making sure I do homework every single day, who was making sure I go to school and I'm fed. It still baffles my mind to this day. She then influenced her sister, which was my aunt, who was trying to bring me here. That she should not even think about bringing me here because I'm going to come there and I'm going to sleep with her husband.
Wow.
So that's exactly what happened. My dream was shattered from that day, of me coming here. I had no desire moving to the US from that point, But then life went on, and like I said, I did get married eventually at some point in my life. That was during the time I was trying so hard to go to college. I was now probably 20 when I met my ex-husband. I was in a long-term relationship, but it was really not working. And I met my ex-husband eventually. And my relationship with my ex-husband started as an arrangement, just to show you how badly affected I was from the history of events that had taken place. My ex-husband was 13 years older than me. When we started our relationship, it was based on the fact that he will pay for my fees. He will take me to school. And I was going to be sleeping with him, basically. So it was already an arrangement. So where did that arrangement come from? How did I, yes, I would, at that point, I'm sure I would have done anything and everything for me to go to school because I really so desperately wanted to go to school.
I so much admire your positive energy and how you're able to cope with all these things. So now let me talk about what I would call admirable resilience. I mean, for somebody to go through what you went through and you are who you are today, you have a positive mindset that allows you to be who you are today. You've been engaged in so many organizations since you migrated to America, and I'm going to name a few. You are a chair commissioner on women's rights, women rights, Youth Council for March for Our Planet. You are an artist, a dancer, a model, actress, cook, and your recipe was also listed on WoodSpoon website. They feature your recipe. And I admire your desire and passion in engaging in all these activities. You also study business management, health and skincare, and you went to New School for fashion marketing. Wow. With all that of your background.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me just put it this way. First, maybe let me just start by telling you my academic record history. So when my ex-husband actually took me to school, I went to study somatology, which is a study of health and skincare.
Mm-hmm.
They do refer to it as cosmetology here. But then I actually studied that. I studied everything to do with skincare, body care, slimming machines, body machines, different massage techniques. I've learned everything to do with like body care, skincare, like makeup. I've learned everything about hygiene, anatomy, physiology. Those are my majors. Cosmetic science, to understand how products are formulated and what products you use for what situation. Like I had to learn about all the diseases. I had to learn about every muscle and bone and yeah, like you need to understand what clients to treat and how and what to avoid when you're treating them. And you have to do a skin analysis and you need to know what causes them to have the problems that they have and how to solve them. So that's very, very important that you understand that.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and I'm qualified to work in 54 different countries, and I can work as a lecturer. I can have my own spa. I can sell products. There's so much I can do. I can start my own academy and think about the course. There's so much I can do with my qualification. But unfortunately, it was not something I'm passionate about. You know, I only really liked one aspect of the course, or two aspects of them, like the facials, and I also liked makeup. So during the time when I was studying, you had to do your external hours. So I went to work at a production company. Like I worked for different production companies, actually freelancing for them during that time. In fact, Trevor Noah actually used to do his makeup as well. Like, and I have a long history that I've known when I was working at Adventure Studios. But then after that, when I graduated, I decided, I started from 2016 to 2018. When I graduated 2018, then I decided, you know what, let me just go to, at that time, I thought I was going to open my own spa. And I decided, let me go to a business school to study business management. With the aim of getting my MBA, actually. But during the time when I was studying, I realized that corporate finance was not my strength.
Yeah.
It was very, really challenging, you know. So I didn't graduate all the way through, like follow up. Like I just did like 1 year and I decided, okay, you know what, I know enough for me to go start a business. So that's enough. Like immediately when I finished up there, I think that's when I started having challenges. Like I went through my divorce. And things took a different turn for me. And then that's when I made a decision to go to LISOF, which is like London Fashion School. So I went to study everything to do with retail management. So you study everything about buying and merchandising. You study everything about styling, everything about floor planning in a retail store, like everything about retail. So I studied that. And then I left LISOF, and after LISOF, I went back to a business school, but now this time around, it was Regenesis Business School, and I was studying project management at that time. I didn't complete all the way to graduate I just wanted to know enough for me to go.
You still do what you had to do. What I'm saying is that with all what you went through, you still become who you are today, and you always have a positive energy about you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's a determination because I do want to get, I was determined. I mean, coming from the background where I came from, we didn't have much, like at home. And my mom tried her best for us at least to have decent meals. And yeah, at least we had dedication. So I went to school at least, even though I changed school so many times because my mom was the type of person who, for some reason, she would get me to this high school and then the next year I'm in a different high school. I went to so many schools. Like I went to 2 primary schools and probably 4 high schools.
You still make everything. You still make everything and you're still striving in America. And I know many people will hear your story.
So I do volunteer for 2 organizations.
Okay.
One of them is called Global Sustainable Development Goals, Inc. as a chair commission on women's rights, human rights, and youth council.
Okay.
That stemmed from my experience as well, because I used to run an NGO in South Africa called Gugulethu Foundation, where I used to develop young girls, particularly, like I mentored them. I also taught them about life skills. I helped them make like vision boards. I helped them navigate through life, and I taught them a lot of skills. So, and I used to have these events called Blessed to be a Blessing. So that was to show that when you are blessed, you should be able to be a blessing to others, basically.
Yes.
So I went through that. And that also came during a very challenging time in my life when I had lost everything. Just prior, before I came here, that's when I ran the NGO. That's another story. But then I also work with March for Our Planet as the global coalition. Coalition, and I'm also a national organizer in the US. For March for Our Planet, which is an organization that I met when I was in the United Nations. And then they approached me, they asked me to join them, and they realized that I could be very helpful. And I started helping them organize coalitions. I started helping them organize events. And I was I championed a lot of our events as well, including during the UNGA. I was the one who was championing our SDG summit.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when it came to WoodSpoon, it's not a magazine. WoodSpoon is actually a big company, which is Uber Eats in New York. I was one of the chefs.
Wow.
So I had my cooking business registered as a chef under their app, WoodSpoon.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my affiliation with WoodSpoon. But then when I joined Miss Immigrant, I had to put that on hold because it's a business that you run from home. Which I really can't be doing right now if I'm on Miss Immigrant USA. I have to be Miss Immigrant USA is not a beauty pageant, but it's community based. It's outreach to community, support exactly to your fellow immigrants. That is why we work a lot with city councils. We work a lot with different elected officials. It's actually a platform that is a catalyst to helping you as a woman if you want to be in a space of power, because it gives you so much that you, it's up to you what you want to do with.
That's so powerful.
Meaning that, exactly.
How can our listener connect with you or follow you on social media or any other way in general? Well,
I am available as Gugu Makhari, GuguMakhari. On Facebook, Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'm not that active on LinkedIn. I haven't used it for years, but I still have an account on LinkedIn. So that's how people can connect with me. Gugu Makhari. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
That's exactly how,
So Pansa Pansa continue to normalize conversation about the importance of community engagement, about African immigrant experience in America. As I always say, as we publicly continue to discuss difficult issues within our community, we're shredding away stigma associated with uncomfortable dialogue. Thank you so much, Gugulethu Makhari, for coming to Pansa Pansa to talk about your experience growing up in South Africa and as an immigrant, African immigrant in America, for sharing your wisdom, what you went through. And I think many people who will listen to your story will find this so powerful, and many people will connect with what you are saying. And it will be a powerful message for many people to educate our community, even in the diaspora, about child abuse and trauma that children do go through. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Miss Kemi. I really, really appreciate you having me on the show. It was awesome having this conversation with you, and I thank you for being so welcoming and warm. It was very easy to talk to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you again for joining me today for another episode of Pansa Pansa Podcast. Remember, each story shared has the power to inspire, educate, and connect us. I hope that today's episode left you with a new perspective and insight. So please join me next time for another deep dive into extraordinary narratives that makes us who we are. Until then, be kind to yourself and to others. Thank you.